our children in danger and has not been resolved yet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Llewellyn. And I would remind the public that suspected cases of abuse or neglect or dependency can be made by calling 704-296-6124 during regular business hours. After hours, weekends and holidays, reports can be made by calling Union County Communications at 704-289-1591. Okay, next we'll go to additions, deletions, or adoption of the agenda. I do have one item. We have item 17, agreed to go into closed session. Can we move that into the end? That way our folks that are here won't have to wait on us to come back out of that. So I'd like to move that to item 21, just after Commissioner's comments. Any other additions, deletions, or?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Just, I want to add that agenda item number 8 on the consent agenda. It should include approval of budget amendment number 17 as part of the action requested.
Okay.
I would ask that consent agenda 10, the EMS replacement policy, be moved to new business for further discussion.
Okay, and let's move that to item 20A. That would be just after the school discussion. Okay, anything else?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion has been made to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda as amended?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None? Okay, that brings us to item 13 on old business.
Yes, sir, Chairman and board members, you had a public meeting at our last regular meeting for conditional rezoning for Winding Creek LLC. Staff is here. I don't know if the applicant is here or not. If you had any additional questions.
Anyone have any additional questions? I'd like to make the motion.
I make a motion that we approve the conditional rezoning request CZ 2015-004. Following proposed conditions: no off-premise signs allowed, no campground RV parks allowed, no flea markets allowed, no type 3 mini storage allowed. And I move that we also adopt the applicable consistency statement for the request, which I believe has been provided to us.
Yes. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay, number 14, item 14.
Item 14, Mr. Chairman and board members, at your last meeting you had a public hearing on the UDO text amendments. Mr. Matthews with Growth Management went over what was involved in each of these text amendments, and if the board has any question of staff as it relates to this item.
Any questions from the board? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the text amendment request for section 5.2, 30.100, 35.010-C, 35.010-D, and 36.060, and adopt the applicable consistency statement.
Any questions on the motion? Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay. Item 15.
Mr. Chairman, in looking at the amendments, it shows here it's 35.060, but under the action requested, it shows 36.060. We may need to get clarification just to make sure that it is 35
Everybody clear with that? It's 35060, not 36060.
Mr. Matthews, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So on that last action, do we need to take another vote on that, Jeff? Consensus of the board, they understand that?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, 15, Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization.
As the board will be aware, we had a lengthy discussion at our last board meeting on this item. At that point in time, it was decided to move the item to this meeting. No action was taken at our last meeting. I know Mr. Lesh is here with our senior transportation planner, and he may have some additional information as to what towns and counties have, what position they have taken on this particular item. Also, Scott Cole with NCDOT is here as well this evening for any questions or additional information on this item.
Anybody have any questions of those gentlemen? I think I have one. Joe or either one of you can probably answer the question. Out of 68 votes, the votes that have been taken so far, where we stand? What is the?
I don't know exact number. I know that Monroe just voted to support the managed lane concept just a few minutes ago. I got a text about that. So
I'm sorry,
far,
Monroe voted what?
to support.
To
the managed
support,
lane
okay, thank you.
concept, yes. The rough count is about 47 votes for the managed lane concept with 7 votes against, and there's several entities that are voting tonight that we don't know about yet.
Okay. So, but there's enough votes for it to be approved, right?
Yes, sir.
Any questions or thoughts from the board? All right, thank you very much. Anybody want to make a motion, or?
I'll make a motion to direct Commissioner Helms as Union County appointee to the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization to vote in favor of the current strategy regarding the use of express lanes for the Charlotte metropolitan area at the January 2016 CARTPO meeting.
Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Jerry Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just recently, we appointed representatives to the various boards and committees that the commissioners have the opportunity to serve on. And as a commissioner, I recognize that each of us represent the body, i.e. the board. But I believe there's a level of respect owed to the competence or judgment exhibited by that commissioner serving. I respect Commissioner Helms, his role on the committee, and realize that he participates in the discussion that leads to the decision reached. So I have difficulty with this vote in that I respect that process and find it hard for me to be telling him how to vote. That said, with regard to the issue, this is my opinion, and I assume will be my vote, is that the contract, although maybe not perfect, is the best direction to take as we approach a region facing the influx of 1 million new residents by about 2025.
Thank you. And Commissioner Helms, I would love to hear if you have a, and you may want to pull your microphone down. I think we're having some video difficulty. We need to get that audio.
I got asked earlier, Mr. Lesh asked me if I was seeing the light. And I told him, yeah, but it's not probably the light he wants me to see. A couple of years ago, we voted on a concept of managed lanes, and I support that. However, we weren't privy to the details of the contract, and that's where I have my concerns. 50-year deal. We provide $170 million worth of taxpayer monies to the contractor. All tolls go to the contractor. If we need additional all-purpose lanes, it could potentially cause us to contribute more to the contractor. I say potentially. I think that's a fair statement. there's no limit on the tolls. So I think the latest number, upper limit, has been talked 40 cents a mile, but there's no limit. And the busier the general purpose lanes get, the higher the tolls go, and I don't see that as helping to alleviate the problem as much. But I recognize that the penalties that are designed in this contract are cost prohibitive from canceling it. However, I'm probably going to vote on principle as opposed to that piece. I think going forth, we've got to have managed lanes, but we clearly, as in any contract here in the county, you need to understand the contract before you agree to it, because the intent in the contract can vary greatly. And I stated last week that I can't support the contract that's being presented to us on the managed lanes, and so my vote will be no. I appreciate very much Jerry Simpson's comments, but that's where I stand, and I will vote how you identify you wish me to vote.
Commissioner Lance Simpson, you have any comments?
I just want to echo the concerns of Commissioner Helms. I agree with managed lanes. I think they're a benefit to a community. I've seen where it works, but I have several issues with the contract. So the content of the contract in and of itself would be the reason behind my voting no tonight, but I do support the managed lanes concept.
I guess my comment would be, it's however we vote, it would just be a statement of support. And if I'm, asked to do a statement of support, I'm going to support your feelings on the subject. If you feel strongly that you haven't been given enough information on your committee that you serve on, I'll stand with you on that and vote against it. I stated last time that I could see the benefit in it, and I think a lot of people can see the benefit in it. I really don't like the way this was brought back. I think if a decision was made, then it probably should have been carried through without asking the local governments to buy in on something that we're not clear on. So if your feeling is that you're on that committee, my support goes to this board first and the board members, and if I felt like if I was in the same position you're in, that I would hope that the commissioners would do that. So any changes or amendments or anything to the motion, or motion stands?
My motion is as is.
Okay. Motion is to direct a yes vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
Item 16.
This item also was a public hearing you had at your last regular scheduled meeting, an amendment to PUD permit number 00001, Morningstar Storage. Staff is here to answer any questions that you may have on this item. There was a presentation on this item during the public hearing at your last meeting.
Okay. Any questions, or anyone want to make a motion on the action?
Sure.
Mr. Jerry Simpson?
I have a question for Brian, if he doesn't mind. Just for information, can you share with us the relationship of a PUD to our current UDO?
Very good. Actually, the PUD is what we call a legacy district. It was actually a component of the previous land development regulations that we had. And because it was in place, when we adopted the Unified Development Ordinance, we had to bring over that district as a legacy district. There are no more PUDs allowed to be approved in the county with the new UDO. So whatever existed gets carried forward, but no new PUDs would be approved. There's other types of mechanisms to do developments, master plan development, rezonings, those mechanisms. So it is a legacy district.
So then am I understand that I believe there is additional property, not counting this parcel, that this will always be an amendment issue.
That is correct,
as-
yes, sir.
As we move forward.
Yes, sir. There are multiple pieces of property that are undeveloped that still fall under the PUD category, and they will be coming forward at some point in time for an amendment or some type of action.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Anyone have a motion?
Motion to approve the amendment to PUD 00001 to allow construction of a 106,605 square foot indoor self-storage facility and adopt the applicable consistency statement.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Next, we have discussion, well, we have that discussion has been moved to the last item on the agenda, so we're going to skip 17 and go to 18. And new business.
Yes, sir, Chairman and Commissioners. As you all are, I'm sure, very well aware, we have a primary on March 15th, and there have been changes in the election law as it relates to, we are now going to be required to do same-day registration at our polling places. And Jeff Yates has spent quite a bit of time in talking to John Whitley, our Director of Elections, as to how we go about meeting those new requirements. And John, at this point in time, has indicated a need for at least having a laptop and applicable software, keyboard, etc., at each of those precincts in order to meet this new requirement. There are still ongoing discussions as other equipment that may be necessary, and so since this is still rather fluid, what we are asking is that up to $100,000 be appropriated from the general fund balance so that we are able to meet the requirements that have been placed upon us, and that we will only expend what is required to meet the law, and any unused amounts would be returned to the general fund if we don't have to expend up to $100,000. And Mr. Yates has been very involved in those discussions if you need additional information.
Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Helms?
Jeff, does this utilize any existing equipment, or is this all new equipment?
This utilizes the existing equipment as well. So what it is, they're having to set up an additional station
I understand.
at each of the polling places. And as Cindy mentioned, we're still trying to get some guidance from the state as to the extent of the equipment needs. So we're still not positive. John still got some meetings to go to. That's why it's the up to amount. So it gives us some flexibility to try to address that.
Anyone else have a question? Entertain a motion.
Yes, I approve budget amendment number 18 to appropriate up to $100,000 of the general fund balance for the purchase of electronic computer equipment to comply with state requirements for the upcoming elections.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Okay. Item 19, Charlotte Douglas International Airport Commission appointment. Union County has one appointment on the Charlotte Douglas International Airport Commission. The initial 2-year term of the county appointee expired December 31st of 2015. The vacancy has been advertised. James Allen Lee currently serves as the county's appointee, and Mr. Lee has applied for reappointment. No other applications have been received for this appointment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask we reappoint James Allen Lee.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, item number 20, Union County Public School request.
Yes, Chairman and Commissioners, I'd just like to make some opening remarks on this particular item. This action is before you this evening based upon a request we received from the Union County Board of Education. And the action really has two very distinct elements, And for that reason, I'm going to talk about them in two separate actions. And actually, the way the agenda abstract has been set up is we are asking you to take two separate actions on these items. The first action is regarding bids for roofing projects. We're recommending as staff that the board approve the two projects that were specified in the request from the Board of Education, and those were Union Elementary and Porter Ridge Elementary. The Board of Education has indicated that the funds for these project overages will come from East Elementary roofing project. Staff's recommendation is based upon the assumption that the reallocation request, as requested, is to support higher priority roofing projects. Based upon the Board of Education's prior request of December 7th, as well as tonight's request, this will reduce the overall funding of East Elementary from the original allocation by this board of $1,002,900 to $412,266. But staff is recommending that particular item. On the second item, the request is to have funds reallocated from two capital projects currently funded by the Board of County Commissioners. There's quite a bit of background information in your agenda package, but it provides a recap of a similar request we received in July of 2015 as well as August of 2015 as it relates to these particular projects. I have to say that as your manager, I am not supportive of significant mid-year budget reallocations. The expectation through our formalized budget process is that all budget requests from whether it's our departments, our partner organizations, and those other agencies that we fund, that the request we receive should be a true representation of actual needs with appropriate prioritization. This request that has been made to you this evening has two parts. One is for the reallocation of the Benton Heights School of the Arts project, and the second is a reallocation of the IP camera platform project. And I'll speak to each of these separately. For the IP camera platform project, I am recommending that the board not approve the reallocation of these funds. As you will recall, the board made decisions regarding the Union County Public Schools budget appropriations and intentionally funded items that were requested to address issues of safety and security for students. The IP cameras were identified by the Board of Education in year one of their CCEP and were identified as life, safety, and security issues for the students. In regards to the Benton Heights project, this project was also identified by the Board of Education in year one of the CCEP as structural, general construction, roofing, windows, and doors as the project description. Subsequent to the budget submission and the Board of County Commissioners' approval of the Board of Education's indication that the cost of the project is now expected to be significantly more than the monies requested by the Board of Education and appropriated by this board. I do want to note that the Union County Public School staff has indicated this project with updated budget estimates may be requested in a future bond request. However, we have not received any formal action to that regard at this point in time. If, as the Board of County Commissioners, you feel that you have received enough information to support funding of projects that are now deemed by the Board of Education as having a higher priority than Benton Heights, then such action should be contingent upon receiving a written list of projects and the associated funding to be allocated to each project for the total of $1,891,623, and this list should be submitted to your manager. And that's only if you agree that Benton Heights should be defunded so that we would be able to appropriate the necessary dollars for the new projects they want to fund out of that reallocation. There is language in your agenda package for each of the motions on these particular items, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions of the manager?
I'd like to hear from the schools.
We have Melissa Merrill and Leslie Boyd from the Union County School Board, and I also see Gary Sides. Welcome you three here to the meeting tonight, and give us your presentation. Now, it's my understanding that one will be presenting on item 1, and Ms. Boyd will be presenting on item 2. Thank you.
Well, good evening. I think you covered everything very well, so we will get started. I will be addressing item number 1, roofing, and I come to you tonight from facilities. The first school that we have a bid for that did go over is Unionville Elementary, not Union Elementary, but Unionville Elementary. This particular bid came in on November 24th from 3 different roofers. This project is a metal roof, and the school is approximately 22 years old. And it did go over by $240,000. And one of the biggest concerns here that was brought to my attention was that at Unionville, the existing metal roofing did cause some facade damage, what you and I would call stucco, which is an EFIS product. That siding needs to be repaired while we're in there replacing the roofing. All of the downspouts, gutters, vents, and there was actually some damage around some of the windows where water did go into some classrooms. So this project does have a significant overage. We recognize that. But while we are there, we'd like to go ahead and get these other items fixed as well. So that explains why you have a $240,000 over. The next important thing to know about this is the bid, this particular bid does expire on January 23rd. That is Saturday. So this is kind of an urgent matter here that we would really appreciate a decision tonight so that we can award this and before it expires pretty much on Friday. It says Saturday, but end of business on Friday. We would like to address Unionville Elementary. The next school that I want to bring to your attention is Porter Ridge Elementary. This is one of the TPO roofing projects that I spoke to you about last time. It's one of 9 schools with the same floor plan and the same roofing construction. Porter Ridge Elementary was built in or opened in 2004. And the bid, 3 bids were received on December 15th. And the lowest bidder was $134,650 over for this TPO project. And please note that this bid will expire on February 13th. So we have a little bit of extra room, although we would appreciate a decision tonight so that staff could proceed on both of these projects. Are there any questions about Unionville or Porter Ridge?
On Unionville, you said it was a metal roof.
Yes.
Now, I've been looking into metal roofs because of potential building. Most of them carry a 50-year warranty. Why 20 years are we having to pay for the replacement?
That is a great question. I cannot answer that for you. I'm happy to go back to staff and ask them if we had a 50-year warranty on it. Most of the roofing that I'm hearing has a 20 to 30-year warranty on it, and then there are steps that we can take to extend it 10 more years. But on this particular product, I am not familiar with a 50-year warranty, and I'm happy to go back and ask that question for you.
I'll be honest, I looked into it from a residential standpoint.
From a residential.
And it may be different from a commercial, but, you know, asphalt shingles are 15, 20, 30 years. And I just wondered why so soon.
It is a great question. I'm happy to go look into that for you.
Any other questions?
What's the plan to put a roof on East Elementary?
Well, the plan is to put a new roof, re-roofing on East Elementary. But one thing that I will mention tonight is that where we are on the schedule today, there are 14 roofs between now and East Elementary, and we are very hopeful that in those 14 following roofing projects, that if we capture any savings, or when we capture savings on a handful of those projects before we get to East, we can replenish the money that we have borrowed from that project.
How many projects have you had savings on thus far?
I do not know. I know that the last time I was here, we had $309,000 savings, the last budget cycle. So we certainly would like to think that we would capture some more savings this calendar year, and we would put that back into East Elementary.
So any idea where you think you're going to be compared to the original $1,209,000, which is what we allocated, and now we're down to 412. So are we thinking we're going to allocate enough money to make up for that, or is that going to be a future request?
It could be a future request, worst case scenario, and we could put that into our 2016-17 budget request. Because again, we do have 14 roofs we have to get to before we get to East.
And when do you think those 14 will be completed?
As soon as possible. We're trying to roll out, a few roofs per month, but I can't.
Well, I understand the weather's not been real cooperative.
Yeah.
But, do you have a projected timeline when you anticipate to get to East Elementary?
Well, it was in our year one roofing schedule, but I do not have a time frame tonight with me on a date to get there. We just followed the order that Nelson Hall set before us, and we bid that out and we schedule it, if funds are there, or I come to you when funds are not there and we schedule it. I know that I can give you an update on the schedule for the roofs that we were able to get approved in December and let you know where we are on those. But 14 roofs away, I do not have a date that I can give you tonight.
What projects do you have bid out that you have back now? You said you could provide me an update through December.
From the roofs that you approved in December, Wesley Chapel, Fairview Elementary, and Marvin Elementary, I can give you an update on dates that I have for those, but I can't give you a date on something that's 14 roofs away.
How many between those projects and the 14th? How many of those in between do you have bid out already and have bids back on?
We are looking at the schedule. We are waiting on bids for Porter Ridge High School. We have a facilities meeting next week that we'll probably get some information handed to us on that one. After Porter Ridge High School, we have Prospect, and then Walter Bickett, but I have not seen any paperwork on those.
You haven't seen the bids on those to know whether they're close to what was anticipated?
No, and again, we do have a facilities meeting next Tuesday at 7:30 in the boardroom, and I would invite anyone to be there, but
So
that's when
they don't share that information with you prior to the meeting, is that what you're telling me?
No, I will receive that next Tuesday at our facilities meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to the emerging needs portion.
Thank you, Melissa.
Good evening, Commissioner Rushing, Chair, Commissioners, Ms. Cotto. coming with a fun one. I am coming to ask for reallocation from the Benton Heights Elementary School and the Internet Protocol Platform. The Benton Heights Elementary School, as Ms. Cotto has informed you, the estimate we were working with was from 2008, 2009, and our comprehensive facility study, and that estimate was about 1.89 in 2008. We could have done that in 2008. For that, the recession was down, people were really hungry, and when you have old numbers and an old estimate, that was 8 years ago, when you go into that, we know there are probably going to be 8 years of problems. And then, since then, we have done the Walter Bickett bid, and we've realized that was about $211 a square foot. So we're estimating with the time, because things are really hot right now, people have more work than they're bidding, we're estimating about $230 a square foot. As the city manager stated, we do plan to put this on the capital improvement project bond for the brick and mortar, and you have not seen that yet because Dr. McKibben came out with his new report in December, and we asked staff to go back and tweak the CCEP to match the new numbers. We didn't want to go by old information. We wanted to take that most current information, and they will be sending that to the facilities committee and to the board in the next couple of months. Now, the internet platform, we're asking for the flexibility to use this money for the emerging needs, and you ask yourself why we would propose this item. Camera safety is really important to us. What we've done recently is we've added some target hardening strategies, we've added more fencing, we've added more middle school SROs. We currently have multiple DVR systems within our school, so it's important to understand that the equipment is there. It's currently there. We're not asking to purchase more equipment. It's currently there. We have additional security strategies which we cannot discuss in a public forum. Sheriff Kathy came out and discussed with us in a closed session on other strategies in place. We also have what's called the HIDs, human interface devices, which an alcove is created and you can't enter without the HID code. So then you may ask yourself, why do we even need it at all? It's because the DVRs have limits. They record, and after so many days, they roll over. So what you had on there before, you can't capture once it rolls over. We have aging equipment. Currently, we have a small supply, like 3 or 4. So when one breaks down, we have a refurbish, and we're spending about $50,000 annually refurbishing those. It's working now, but it won't last forever. We can't even buy those DVRs anymore. So moving to the Internet Protocol Platform provides adaptability, and this will last about 20 years. So this is a very important project. We stand by that. Now there's 3 different questions that I know you want answered, and I'm going to have to combine them because if I say one, it might bring up a question. So just bear with me here. I know the question came up that if you allowed us to reallocate from those 2 projects, we have about $594,000 left. And the question is, what would you do with that pot of money? Another question is, what is our priority? And the other one is how we plan on handling the internet platform. Well, our priority is simply this: the remaining projects from the 14-15 budget, the emerging needs from the 15-16 budget. Any emerging needs, I mean, it's January, just like with anything, with a car, with a house, things break down, things come up, and that's why we've identified these as emergent needs. So what we would do with that $594,000 is we would, any overages and estimates, as you see with us with the roof, sometimes you have overages, but we will also document any savings that we have just the same. And then, so our order is going to be the 14-15, the 15-16, the New Salem sewer repairs, any overages, any unders, and then the CCEP year 1. And then after all is said and done, whatever money we have left, which we hope we would go toward the IP platform. And then in addition, if there's any thing that we'd have to move, we would move it to year 2 of the CCEP, which we plan on incorporating that with the capital money that we've talked about over the next 8 years, the PAYGO. We would incorporate that into those funds. So when you have the IP update, it's important to note that if you were to buy the equipment for each school, yes, it would cost more. You don't have to buy it all at the same time to realize the savings. It's one of those things that plateaus. As you buy so much, you recognize your savings. So what we would do is we would buy our middle school first. That's our most vulnerable age. We would buy the middle school first, get that done, then the high school, then the elementary. And as we're phasing, when we do that at the middle school, then that'll open up all those DVRs that we have there to help replace the others. So it's important to note that every school has cameras. Every school is safe. This is allowing us to move to a platform that will allow us more adaptability, more long-term. Everything's moving to the internet. Everything's moving to an easier platform. So that's that, and that's the priority. So another question may be, what other areas or pots of money did we look at before we came to you with this request? I'd like to mention that there is about $1.9 million in our current operating expenses, and that's earmarked for instructional. And what we are doing is keeping operating, instructional, and the current operating, and capital. So when it came time to understand how to deal with our capital, it led us to our capital budget. Mr. Dan Karpinski, our CFO, gave us a presentation at our January 5th meeting, and it shows that we have $15 million, about 15.1, and I'm going to work in whole numbers just to make it easier, but I have the specifics, and that's right here with the exact dollar amounts, but just to make it easier. So of that 15.1, we have $1 million that's earmarked for our E-rate program, and that's a state program that we applied for. And in that, we spend 40 cents on a dollar, and they spend 60 cents. That program has a limitation. We have to be finished with that program. And what it is rewiring old buildings, some servers, and we've spent about $300,000. And I just want to throw out, it is not to purchase any type of laptop, Chromebook, or anything like that. It's mainly for the old wiring and services. So that's about $700,000 we have left there. 8.1 is what we have left for our roofing, and as you see, we're dealing with our roofing. We don't want to take any money from taking care of our roofs. We have $375,000 from our 13-14 roofing. Those roofs are finished on the roof, but we've got some closeout, some last-minute QA, QC to make sure everything's paid before we make their final payments. And then we've got $360,000 and the 14-15 for the Walter Bickett soft costs. So, we've got the construction money, but you have to pay the architect, and you've got to put furniture in it. So, you've got your new house, but you've got to put the necessities in it. So then the last is the $5.6 million. And what that is our CCEP year 1 budget, the 2.4 that's unrestricted, the 1.89 Benton Heights, the 1.2 for the internet protocol. So those are our choices. The New Salem sewer repairs has to be done. It's 1.5 million. So we've already paid for the Weddington High School chiller out of that pot. We've already paid for the Monroe Middle School HVAC and the Weddington High School boiler. And we still have $2.4 million of emerging needs, which these are, and all of these were emailed, but I have copies as well in the event that you need them. So again, our goal is to take care of the remaining projects from the capital budget, these, the emerging needs, these, New Salem sewer, and then the rest of year 1 CCEP. That is it. And everything will be documented just like we do now, come before you, and that's our priority. And I think I've answered everything that Ms. Cotto had requested and asked. It may not have been in the same order, but it just made sense for me to present. So, any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Helms?
Yes, I think you gave a very good argument for the necessity of the IP platform. And I remember very specifically that it was a health and safety security for the children's. So I personally have a lot of concern with moving money out of that product, because I know there's other platforms that are applicable on that improve the safety of all of our children. So from that standpoint, the other thing that I had, looking over your list of emerging needs,
Yes, sir.
and looking over some of the emerging needs, some of them seem more repair cost, ongoing repair of a school that would be traditional maintenance than a capital expenditure. And I also have a question about, do these bathrooms not have any stall walls? I keep seeing over and over that, we've got to replace the stall walls, and
And I think they have partial, and I haven't been to all of them, and, maybe, but I think that some of them have partial temporary. I reserve the right to make sure I have that correct, but that's what I believe, but I can find out for sure.
well, personally, I'd like to
Sure.
make an appointment and go see it, so
Okay.
I could understand it better.
Okay.
I will say the roofs, I support. But I do have questions about moving the other funds.
Well, I had some questions as well, when I look over this, because I'm just saying this as a new to the board, and some of these have been out. I asked too for myself before I come and to fight for it. And so when you look at number 14, like maybe the Weddington High School renovate the floor, and I said, what makes that an emerging need? And it's the floor, it's pulled up, and it's a tripping hazard, and it's all over, and it can't be glued down with the whole floor. So it's just something that's pulled up that kids are coming in and out, teachers are coming in and out. So, but we'd be happy to sit down. I know that Mr. Karpinski and Mr. Yates speak a lot, but I'd come and talk too. But I asked the same question. I looked through them all, and that's what our facilities committee has recommended. We support them. I've asked the questions, and that's what we've come with.
Any other questions?
Yeah. What, you've indicated that Benton Heights obviously cannot be done now for $1,891,000. What's the plan for Benton Heights?
The band is to put it on the capital improvements bond plan.
How much?
The estimate is about 3 to 3.5 million.
Is that increase because of the age of the original quote?
Yes, that's mainly what it is. That the original quote was, $100, $100+ per change, but that's the main reason, not because of scope change. The scope is pretty much stayed the same. I mean, we're concerned about what we may see, but it's mainly the cost per square foot between 2008 and now.
So that's almost a 50% increase. If you roll that through the entire CCEP, are we looking at a 50% increase over what you budgeted for the CCEP for those projects?
No, sir. I mean, no, I can't. We have to see it again, but that's why we're taking another look at it in a more cursory direction. So
All those budget numbers did come for the CCEP, did come from 2009, correct?
Correct, but not all of those. You may not see all of the projects that you see now on the CCP when it comes out again. So,
The estimates that you have here for the emerging needs,
yes.
are those current estimates, or are those estimates that go back several years
No,
as well?
these are current estimates. Now, the 14-15 were from 14-15, but these emerging needs are pretty good, the ones, especially the 15-16.
But the 14-15 may be significantly
Maybe,
under
not
as well.
significantly, but they may be a little bit over and under. But these are, the good thing about these is that they're toilet partitions, 15,000. I'm hopeful that we can get good estimates for the smaller. These projects are smaller in their amount. I can't imagine that, and I'm hoping that we could buy a lot of these at the same time. The good news about the 14 and 15, they're actually at 3 schools, pretty much concentrated at Prospect, Western Union, and Parkwood, so we should be able to shove them all together, and maybe get one contractor to give us one bid for those.
So, let me not mince words. You want me, and you want this board, to take $2 million from a Title I school and reallocate it and strip an IP platform that y'all beat us about the head that it was so critical and so important and we had to have it. And now all of a sudden, this Title I school and the safety of our children is no longer critical, that the petitions in the toilet are more critical.
Well, the thing is, with the Benton Heights, it's very important, but it's not a piecemeal project. What we need to do in there, we need to go in and do it one time. So you can't build half a house. So Benton Heights is just as important as it was when the previous board came to you. We don't have all of the necessary money to do the project.
I have a couple questions. First of all, the IP cameras.
Yes.
If we did leave the money there and did the IP cameras, could that equipment that's already there be freed up to help in the exceptional children classrooms? So you have a lot of DVRs and you have a lot of cameras still left, and I feel like maybe that could be repurposed to use for that. Is that a policy decision or is that an equipment decision?
Well, that's an equipment decision, and from what I understand, in order to do the exceptional children, you need the IP platform and not the DVRs, because if so, I'm thinking we could do it now. And it's been the equipment that has.
So if we left the money there, you could actually maybe do, you were talking about doing it in high school, middle school, elementary school?
Middle school, high school, and then elementary.
Okay, so we could do, we could probably move that forward if that were your decision on that would be your board's decision, of course, to use it for that purpose. But that there could be some repurposing or extending the life of some equipment to do that, right?
Again, I don't know that the DVRs are going to be compatible because of the rollover and the time involved.
Right.
I think that's just what I've
Um,
heard. What
the bubble moving through that was talked about in the McKibben report. With Benton Heights at such an increased cost, we see a lot of elementary schools in the county actually are decreasing in numbers tremendously. Even in some of the fastest growing, most populated areas of the county, you see the number of children going down. Since we just got the McKibben report numbers back in December, and you've really not had a lot of time to discuss it, so I can understand that if you haven't. What about eliminating Benton Heights altogether and using those empty classroom seats we have in other schools?
Well, I am sure that staff and facilities will come up with a plan, and that's where it is now. In fairness to them, we have asked staff to reevaluate it, and they're going to bring it to facilities.
What all is that school? What does that school house? It houses the arts and music. Is it arts and music?
Yeah, it's an arts and music but it's basically.
Any other offices there? Any other people stationed there out of Union County Public School System?
I don't think so, but I can clarify. Like you're thinking like a group.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I can ask for sure.
Okay. You're talking about with relation to the roofs. I think rearranging the shingles is no problem for us. I think we've decided that the shingles needed to be fixed. These roofs needed to be fixed. I do still have issues with moving the money from a Title I school. I understand that there's not enough to do the whole thing, but that doesn't mean we can't save up enough or find enough to do the whole thing later on. It would be easier to find half of it than all of it, especially when we got half of it already appropriated. And so we're looking at going to $3.5 million to finish that. So it's not like $9 million or anything. It's not way up there. And if we're going to keep that school, if we're going to not find homes for those kids, I think 8 years neglected is what was said earlier. We're looking at 9, 10. How many years neglected are we going to do that school? So something needs to be made, a decision, I think, by your board needs to be made on what we're going to do to that school before we take the money away. With that said, also, that money could always be used to help roof East Elementary at the end of this long process. Is if we don't find the savings, you can use that money from Benton Heights to move over to that roofing project that we'll be having to fund one way or the other. So again, just needing a little bit more information. I think the McKibben report's so fresh that we need to really digest those numbers, see what they look like, and see if see if that money would be better spent on other projects rather than a school of that age. Similar to Walter Bickett, when we moved the kids out of there to a new school. I think we're a little bit premature on doing this without digesting those numbers from the McKibben report. Any other comments or questions?
When is Benton Heights, if it were to be moved to a bond, and we're putting a lot of what if on that bond, when would it be completed?
Well, we'd have to, wouldn't be able to go on a bond until, I guess, November at this point. And we bid out, a project of that magnitude, don't quote me, I'm thinking a couple of years.
So it would be one of the first projects that you would undertake with your bond funds?
Well, we have not. The facilities committee, again, has to come back and make a recommendation. I can't speak to that right now, to the priority.
Well, I'll just restate, I do not support moving the money off of Benton Heights. Frankly, these are budget discussions that should have already occurred or need to occur in the next budget discussion. We don't allow any of our county staff to come in and make all these budget requests, and I just feel like we need more information, and I think maybe once we have all that information and we can discuss it over the next 3 months, then we can allocate what we need to allocate when we need to allocate it, and that'll be at the budget time.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. We did bring it up in the last budget cycle. We asked for $2 million for emerging needs, and you didn't feel comfortable giving us a pot of money, so you said come to you with the emerging needs as we need them.
Right, and had you come to us with those emerging needs line item like you've presented now, you might have gotten a different outcome.
Right.
But just to throw a number at us and ask us to, you know darn well, there's not one of us up here that's going to do that. So if you're going to throw a half-hearted request, don't expect anything different. It's just that simple. My obligation is to every citizen in this county, and I'm going to be as transparent as I can be with their funds. So if you want to come to me with a very transparent request, then I'll get right behind you. But until that happens, you can't expect a different outcome, not from me.
I would just like to know the kind of the rationale behind prioritization, whether how IP cameras that were such a safety and security issue are now less important than a flooring. If I read over the Weddington flooring issue, you said it was a trip hazard, but you're going to put down a polished concrete floor or maybe refloor it. I can't imagine that taking up the chip tiles and making it no longer a chip hazard for the remainder of the school year as we get into budget session is going to come in under that. And so just have an understanding why IP cameras that were so important are now less so than some of these other items on here.
Mr. Jerry Simpson, no comments, questions? And I think, again, this is just, this shows the need that we talk more and that we communicate more and that our staffs communicate more and that we work hand in hand in this. And again, I was there for the McKibben report. I appreciate you inviting me to come to that meeting and participating in that. We have a lot of big decisions, a lot of big money decisions to be made. And we have a budget time coming up that we can make a lot of these decisions during budget time. And I think that that's where I would like to go with it. I would like to have this discussion with our staff and your staff, and let's be transparent, working together with each other. Let's talk about these priorities and make sure that these priorities are going to remain solid, just like the IP camera. This, you have to understand that we get calls too. and the parents, when they call us and they're concerned about the IP cameras, and they talk to us about the IP cameras, and they talk to us about the exceptional children, and they've been told that, you know, if the commissioners don't fund them, then that's why it's going away. And we've had those conversations, and we know that a lot of times information gets messed up into the public too. But that's why the transparency between the two of us is so important. Thank you all three for coming here tonight. Now, you know, I would encourage Chairman Collins to come. I would encourage the Chairman of the Facilities Committee, Kevin Stewart, to come. There's nothing to be afraid of by talking. I think that Frank's a little gruff at times. I can pinch him on the leg if he gets too wild. We need to talk. We need to discuss this stuff out, and we need to plan together. And transparency is the way that we're going to do that. I fully believe that. And I think that's the sense. I'm new too, like you are. We got elected at the same time. So we don't have some of this, the history through the lawsuit that others have. And I think that that's a blessing to us. I think there's a lot of bad blood, but we can be fixed with planning and communication. So we've got two different items. We have the roofs, which I think in the past we've been very clear that we were willing to do these roofs and help with the roofs. So would somebody like to make, I'll entertain a motion on the first item, and then we'll talk about the second item.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of appropriation from the East Elementary School roofing project, $401,439, to the Unionville Elementary roofing project, sufficient to fund the $849,789 recommended contract, and to the Porter Ridge Elementary roofing project, sufficient to fund the $510,650 recommended contract award, and amend the budget accordingly.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
any opposed? No.
No. Can I make one comment?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Merrill, for bringing this. But will you go back and look? You talk about them having to be signed by the end of the week. Well, you make sure that when you come back next time that you give us time, that if we have to have additional questions, we got time to go to another board meeting. And that way we won't put you on the spot so much. We appreciate that.
Thank you. All right. Any motions or discussion on the second item, emerging needs?
I move that we table it till the next budget discussions.
All right. Motion's been made to table emerging needs request until the budget discussions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you answering the questions. And they were hard questions tonight, and you answered them the best you could. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have item 20A. That's the EMS item off the consent agenda.
Yes, Chairman and Commissioners, and I may have Mr. Teague and Mr. Yates, depending upon the questions that Commissioner Helms may have. If you recall, during our budget discussions on Union EMS, specifically as it related to vehicle replacement, at that point in time, we indicated we had not done an objective evaluation as to what vehicles needed to be replaced. We had the information we had received from Union EMS, but we indicated that we thought an objective evaluation needed to take place. Mr. Teague was involved in that evaluation, and based upon looking at all of their rolling stock is how this item came before you. If you will recall, in your contract, it stipulates that any fund balance in excess of $500,000 that the county can use that for other purposes, and that is the funding source that we are recommending for the vehicles as well as the cardiac monitors. My understanding is why this is coming before you now versus at budget time is because of the time necessary to order these vehicles and get them on the road, since the evaluation process did take some time. The other element, and I assume this was part of the discussion, is by funding any of these this year out of their fund balance, it certainly does reduce the outlay we may be looking at in subsequent budget years. But like I said, Mr. Teague and Mr. Yates were much more involved in this if you have any questions of them.
Commissioner Helms?
Yes, the question I had, and I participated in the EMS contract where we discussed the vehicles and everything, and I don't dispute the fact you have vehicles that need to be replaced. I believe we replaced 2 last year. Added 2 additional. That's correct.
Would
You're
you
correct.
mind coming, I'm sorry, I apologize, just so we have you on mic.
Good evening, everyone. Last year, the process that you spoke of, the team that worked together, the work group, that was formed before my coming into the picture. There was an agreement made to have 2 vehicles remounted as part of the ongoing remount process. This work group identified the need to add 2 additional vehicles. So instead of remounting 2 vehicles, they used those 2 vehicles, instead of replacing 2 vehicles, they added those to the fleet. At the same time, they kept the